Hi, and welcome to Your Prosperity, a podcast series on financial topics including tax, wealth creation, superannuation, lending, audit, and many other things that we deal with here on a regular basis at Prosperity Advisors. As with all financial podcasts, any advice you hear in this is general in nature and not to be relied upon. Please contact us for any specific advice. Hi, and welcome to the podcast. Today is the 1st of August, 2022. I'm here with Colin Samuel and I'm Brendan Campbell, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about family groups and business considerations, I guess, for family groups and constitutions and what you need to do and those sort of things. Colin's a bit of an expert out of the Sydney office for Prosperity, and he's dealt with a bit of this lately, so we thought it'd be timely to do a little podcast on it and talk a bit about it. So, Cole, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Brendan. Good to see you again.
Yeah, great. So, what constitutes a family business, I guess? We're talking about constitutions, how to deal with family groups, and some of the complicated issues that arrive with intergenerational stuff. But what's a family business? Talk us through what you consider a family business.
It's a good question. There's a difference between a family business and a private business. So a private business might be where you have 2 or 3 or more business owners, but they're not related. So, they're just business partners. I guess family businesses are where they're from the same family, and that might be the direct family, or it might be, multi-generational, or, across a number of different families. It might be a first generation business, but across many families.
Yeah, so it's not about how big the group is or how small it is. It's really just that family element of it. It could be a small convenience store. It could be a large multinational. I guess what's that? There's a big American superstore they've got that's sort of still held by all the family members. It's one of those ones where that would still be a family business, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of the big European companies are family busices.
Yeah, so big ones.
Things like, I'm pretty sure Mars Confectionery is even.
Still family.
So certainly was anyway.
What does that change for us when we're looking at it from an accounting point of view, a planning point of view, an advising point of view more than anything else? What does it change to be just a normal business with, shareholders? Well, they're all shareholders, but, unrelated shareholders versus a family business?
Yeah. Well, I guess for us as advisors, I think it makes it, for me personally anyway, it makes it a lot easier to relate to. We're all members of families, whether big or small. And families are a complicated beast, let alone if you throw business and doing business with family members into it.
Yeah, I'd agree. That makes it's challenging enough sometimes in a large family group at the dinner table, whether it's if you now have a business, particularly probably a successful business, I'd imagine that makes it a lot more challenging, and family dinners could be a lot more entertaining, I guess, in some ways too.
Yeah, well, from talking to our clients about it, I mean, it's a really big positive, and at the same time, I think they sometimes struggle with it in terms of, where's the split between the family and the business. And I know from talking to some of our clients, especially between generation and generation, the kids often see the business as one of their siblings, and that can create a lot of issues between parents and kids, where the business has been given more love, or there's a perception at least that the business has been given more love and sometimes more money than what the kids think that it's due, and they feel as though the love and money might should have gone to them as opposed to the business.
Growing the business. And I think sometimes the other way too, where you see it, where you might have, say, three siblings, but one of them is more active in the business, and that can take on a bit of issues, where the two who aren't in the business might think, well, hold on, why does he get to do this, and he's just, we're just as good, and he's getting paid to do this role or whatever, and then
100%.
Person on the other side, the other person who works in the business might be thinking, well, I'm doing everything here and keeping this business alive. What are they doing? How can they get it? What's their share like?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had examples amongst our clients on both sides, where whether it's the son or the daughter working their backside off, all of a sudden goes, you know what, we're I'm getting, when mum and dad pass away, we're all sharing equally in terms of the wealth, but I've actually grown this, I've had a lot to do with the growth of this business and the family wealth. If I'm only getting a third of it, and my other two sisters getting a third of it, but they haven't done much, then what am I doing? I've got, my wife's in my ear about not being home to look after the kids at, it's 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. And, I'm now getting on a bit myself. Why should I be doing it? Why don't we just employ someone to be the group CEO, and I can do what my sisters are doing?
Yeah. And the other argument is
what brothers are doing,
Yeah. And is that person getting paid for as well? Like if they're doing a role where, they're running a large business, and, if you would get an external person in to do as good a job, it'd cost you 300 grand a year. Well, that, in my opinion, that guy or girl should be paid 300 grand a year to do that job.
Yep.
But that also then creates resentment on the other side. So I guess that's the issue we all know that's going to come up. And one of the reasons today to talk a bit about was you've done a bit of work recently, I guess, on family constitutions, which I think is a great approach to try and negate that issue you get, where you can try and separate family from business. And really documenting as key. So, talk us through family constitutions. I know they do it a fair bit in America as well. They seem to be big on it over there in European countries, and you've done a little bit of it here as well. So, what's the main benefits, and how do they work?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the constitution itself, I guess the way that I like to say to clients is that it's a document that should be reviewed constantly, but it's not necessarily, whilst these families may not have had a constitution before, the work behind the family constitution is the important piece. And it may well be that they've had another advisor who previously facilitated it, but they didn't have, the technical term of a family charter or family constitution. I guess, what it includes is things like what's important to the family. So what's the family values, and hopefully that's aligned or can be aligned to the values associated with the business. It talks about, it's a document that's tied into I guess the older generation's estate planning wishes as well. You can't have a document or a family charter that isn't also tied into the estate plan of mum and dad, because then you would have something that conflicts. But it talks about things like, what happens if there's a change in ownership in the business? How do you, if a family member wants to sell down, how does the family itself deal with it?
So it might have something in where the other siblings get the first right to buy it at a market value, or at a something like that, or get first. If they get an offer on the table, of the siblings get to have a go at it first, or get it at a discount, or whatever. And
it's also obviously tied into the shareholders agreement. But sometimes, the shareholders agreement is between the shareholders. But if the family owns its shares via a trust or a variety of different trusts, within that one trust, there may be, multiple different individuals. So it's not as simple as saying, well, a shareholders agreement can cover it off, because you might actually be talking, especially where it's across the various different family members and across the up and down across the generations, but also between cousins and uncles and aunts and their families. A shareholders agreement won't cover that if it's controlled, if the shareholder is a trust. So I guess the family constitution deals with the issues amongst the direct family, and talks about, so for example, when the younger generation are coming up and they want to be employed by the family business, what's the process? Do they have to, can they go straight from university into the family business?
Straight to CEO, surely.
Sorry, what's that?
Straight to CEO straight from
uni. Absolutely. Yeah. Or do they have to go and work for,
mailroom or whatever?
Yeah, like a larger business in the industry where they can build up their skills. without being the dad's son, and I guess or dad's daughter. So that, that's where there's issues in the family business where whether the kids feel resentment from the management or the other way around.
And I guess importantly, I would have thought most of this sort of stuff wouldn't be legally binding. We can't give legal advice, but I would have thought most of it's more wishes and direction of the family. And from the sound of it too, I think one of the big benefits when we were talking about these previously is it really aligns the family, doesn't it? Like if you sit down and go through, as you said, the process is more important. If you go through that process and you all nut it out, you work it out together, even if it's likely driven by the patriarch or monarch or whatever it is who's running this, they're probably driving it anyway. But at least everyone's on the same page, and there's not a surprise 10 years later when somebody goes, "Oh, what do you mean I don't get paid for the work I did in it? I thought I get," like it's all laid out.
Yep.
You discuss it, you go through it. This is what everyone is entitled to. This is how it works. If someone works in the business, they get this. If you want to sell, this is what we want to happen.
Yep.
And I think that's it. It surely makes, if you can get rid of the underlying questions, and at least it brings things to the table, and family dinners will have presumably one big fight when it's happening, and then it's all sorted.
Yeah. Well, that's the pipe dream, right?
Yeah. I bet it never actually happens that smoothly, but in theory, that would happen. Yeah.
Yeah. No, correct. I mean, I think by going through this process, it at least gets the key people in the family thinking about the issues and talking about the issues. I think an important piece around it is if there's conflict in the family, where it's a material conflict and that hasn't been resolved, then families shouldn't be starting this process because that it's just going to conflict leads to conflict, right? And there'll just be resentment. So then there needs to be buy-in from everybody and having the right facilitator. And sometimes, there's situations that we've been involved in where we go, you know what? We'll sit in the background and have this person, we feel as though this person is a better facilitator. We don't need to be the smartest people in the room. It just, with certain businesses and I guess certain personalities, especially, I think sometimes in the past where kids have seen us as mum and dad's advisor.
Yeah, I get it. They might see that as a bias towards them and not be engaged.
Yeah, like you really want the whoever's facilitating these discussions to be independent and be able to take the kids' view on as well as mum and dad. And as you were suggesting before, that it's not just, this is not something that mum and dad wants. It's what we all want.
Yeah.
And I've got someone fighting my case. It's not just me or my brother or sister.
I'd imagine the accountant's the right place to start for it though initially, because we obviously trusted advisors. We hold a lot of knowledge about these sort of businesses and these family situations. And even from the younger guy coming through or the younger girl coming through, that next generation, it probably helps them too, because if say the older generation is currently controlling the business, there might be something in that, and it's alive, it's an active document, you update regularly, but there might be something there where they're saying, well, yeah, my intention is in 5 years, I want to hand over and I want to do this and I'll step back and you step up.
Yep.
In 5 years, if that's not happened, it's quite easy for the younger generation saying, we have talked about this. So has something changed? And it's not just a bit of a whinge in the background. It's like, oh God, when are they going to hand things over? I really got some great ideas I want to run with here. It's a matter of, well, we've talked about this. It's in the plan. Is there something holding it up? And it can really, I guess, promote a lot of conversation and healthy conversation. Because perceptions change over time. And if, you can go back to say, well, you did think that back at the start. We all kind of agreed that was a good idea.
Yeah. And also that it's not just I guess firstly, yes, they've got a document they can refer back to, but also depending on how many people are in the room when those discussions are had, it's not just a kid versus parent discussion. It's hang on, there were 5 of us in the room, or however many people it was, we all agreed to this, and it is something that the family wants to do, and we've seen situations where words work really well. A family constitution is a really long, or can be a long document, but where it works well is where it's been whittled down to a one-pager, where anyone coming into the family, or even the family itself, could just, as weird as it sounds, can actually refresh your memory and go, right, this is what the family stands for.
Like an incoming spouse or something, you mean? Like
an incoming spouse, but also like as issues arise, rather than having to look through a verbose document, they've got a one-pager that says, right, this is what we stand for. The vibe of what this decision that someone is trying to push doesn't fit in with our family constitution.
Did you find a bit of a castle reference there? It's the vibe. Is that what I heard there?
It's all
and the vibe, and
the vibe. Yeah.
So yeah, look, it's obviously an important document for those businesses where they're bigger. I guess it matters when there's big dollars involved. If it's a small fish and chip shop, I don't think anyone's getting too involved in these, and it's a bit of a conversation. But the bigger those businesses get, I would imagine the more important and the bigger and more intergenerational I get is probably the relevance. Like if it's a big business, but the kids are off doing their own thing and they're all with their own different jobs, not involved in the business, well, yeah, they're probably the wills will take care of what they get from the business and how that works. That's all fine. But where there's intergenerational and people working in these large businesses and getting involved with it, and I guess people having different opinions of what they're entitled to and what they're not entitled to. It sounds like they're very relevant documents, and I'd imagine the first one's pretty hard to get done, but then it is a bit smoother. Presumably.
Yeah, no, correct. I mean, it is, I guess, going back to what you're saying, 100% right. I think the bigger the it's not just the more dollars involved, but I think the bigger the family, both multi-generational, but also across. So if it's, two brothers who have started up a business, and then their family, both of their families are involved, that's where it can get complicated as well, where it's side by side. But yeah, I mean, it's when you first started, I think that's when it's probably the hardest, and what families find the hardest. But once they're into, they're used to having those sessions facilitated, and they can go along with the rhythm of those sessions. I think in terms of updating the constitution, they certainly find it a lot easier. And also, I think there's a lot more trust in it, or hopefully when they're updating, there's a lot more trust than maybe when they're first doing it.
And it probably takes a fair bit, sorry to jump in there, out of the, if they've got a format and a process to go through, it probably removes some of the chat at the dinner table and the underlying comments that would no doubt happen in those groups. It'd be much easier that you just have a regular dinner and go, if someone's got an issue, hey, look, we'll deal with that next month when we talk about that. Which schedule it's coming up, we're going to talk about that. Let's sort that out then. And you can just move on because it'll be dealt with. Yeah,
correct. And a lot of the time, the byproducts of the family constitution, if they don't already have it, and once again, it comes down to the size. So, the wealthier ones might have a family office, but they don't need to. But really, and this is where it doesn't come down to size, where you have, it has multiple names, but a family council and a family forum or assembly. So the family council is where, as what you were saying before, the family have dedicated, it might be monthly meetings where the key people get together. It's often in those family council meetings, in-laws aren't necessarily involved in those, unless there's a specific reason for them to be. Whereas the family forum or assembly is often an annual event, or might be every 6 months, where the extended family might go away on holiday. And one of those days is actually talking about the family business, and the family council gives an update, and that's where the in-laws and the extended family, I guess, can have their input. But having that split, I think, is important, because I think, as I said at the start, everyone's part of a family, and often when in-laws get involved, it can be great, and it's often great. But if there's any issues within the family, I think you run the risk of it being magnified with the in-laws.
So you got the family councils, the board of directors who meet regularly and talk about it, and then they present some, like at the AGM for the family forum, they present the results and how it's all tracking.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. And that can be as formal or as informal as they like in terms of those family forums.
Yeah, the family holiday presenting it sounds more attractive to me, but yeah, that's
yeah. But I guess, like, once again, it probably comes down to how much wealth is involved. If there's significant wealth, then people who aren't involved in the family council want to know what's going on.
I can imagine. Look, appreciate that, Cole. Really good info. I think it's something definitely to think about for those large family groups with plenty of money. Anyway, those are the ones. Money often attracts problems. So if you can get some of that sorted, word it out, keep the rest of the family stuff happy and moving along, and deal with this, I think that's a great way to deal with it, which is why I wanted to chat to you on the podcast. If people want to reach out to you, I guess, how do they contact you? Email would be the best, I'd imagine.
Yeah, email, mobile number, mobile phone.
Yep, all in the notes. So contact him on the notes, be able to get hold of Colin out of our Sydney office. And everyone, thanks for joining us today. Really hope you enjoyed the podcast. For more, content, variety of topics encompassing financial prosperity, I guess, so subscribe to the podcast, give us a few likes, give us some stars, listen to some previous episodes. And I'm Brendan Campbell at bcampbell@prosperity.com. Reach out on the website at prosperity.com.au. Sorry, .com.au on the email. The website prosperity.com.au. Follow the links from there, and hopefully talk to you all in another one shortly. Thanks, Cole.
Thanks, Brendan.
Thanks for joining us for today's podcast. Hopefully you liked it, and if so, please give us a few stars, like and share. And if you'd like to follow the series, please subscribe and pass any information on to your friends as well if you think they might like it. For more information about who we are, head to prosperity.com.au and follow the links.